Flush.
Royal flush underneath the 6.
How in the world does this guy do this?
In this video, I will explain Shin Lim's incredible card cheating demonstration with Jimmy Fallon. Here's a quick recap of what happened. Shin begins the performance by asking Jimmy Fallon to open a brand new deck of cards and shuffle it. He then starts dealing, showing that the top card is the 4 of clubs, and places it on the table. As he continues dealing, he flips over the top card again to reveal it's still the 4 of clubs, and repeats the move once more. Next, Shin deals cards from the bottom of the deck, yet the 4 of clubs remains on top. He picks up several cards from the table and begins dealing them one by one, and each card can be seen vanishing into thin air. Shin then asks a band member to name any suit and card. The volunteer chooses the 6 of spades. After performing a riffle shuffle, he has Jimmy push the 2 halves of the deck together and square it up. He then deals 10 packets of cards, placing them in order on the table. Remarkably, each packet contains the exact number of cards as its position. 1 card in the first packet, 2 in the second, 3 in the third, and so on. Since the selected suit was spades, the top card of each packet is revealed to be the corresponding spade from the ace to the 10 of spades. For the finale, Shin flips the chosen 6 of spades, face down on one of the packets. And in an instant, all the cards transform into the royal flush of hearts. I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with the initial sleight of hand moves he did. The first one is second dealing, where the top card is pushed forward while secretly the second card is dealt, giving the illusion of dealing from the top. The second move Shin performed is known as the bottom deal, which is clearly shown in this exposed demo. After that, he used a technique called laser dealing, where the cards seem to vanish as they're dealt onto the table. Here's how the move appears from the magician's perspective. In Shin Lim's case, after all the cards are palmed in his right hand, he secretly drops them into a servant, which is a hidden bag that hangs behind the table. You can see him ditch the cards at this moment. Now let's get to the interesting part of the performance, where Shin was somehow able to deal the cards into packets with such control. In order for Shin Lim to perform this trick successfully, he would need a total of 55 cards, whereas a standard deck contains only 52. This explains why, when Jimmy opened up the deck, neither the jokers nor the ad cards were seen being removed. In case you don't know, a brand new bicycle rider back deck contains 52 standard cards, 2 jokers and 2 ad cards totaling 56 cards. This means Shin has to remove 1 ad card to ensure the trick works perfectly, so that each packet has 1 additional card, allowing the 10th packet to contain exactly 10 cards. But here's the problem. Remember, just a moment ago, Shin performed laser dealing with 5 cards and ditched them behind the table into the servant. This logically means the trick can't be executed. This would mean that the deck used during the final phase was either switched out, or the 5 cards that were previously ditched were secretly added back into the deck. A key giveaway to the method that Shin used to perform this effect can be observed if you watch the moment where he splits up the packets to show the number of cards in each one. For those even slightly familiar with how smooth and air-cushioned bicycle cards are, especially when they're brand new and freshly opened, like in Shin Lim's case, you'd know that it takes very little finger pressure to split the cards apart. And Shin, who's been performing card magic for over a decade, knows very well that he can spread the cards easily. But he didn't. The reason behind him doing that makes sense. If we rewind to the moment he directs his attention toward one of the volunteers in the band.
Quest, you have a card in mind? Don't say yeah.
While everyone's focus is on the volunteer who's thinking of a playing card in his mind, Shin's hands can be seen going behind the table. During this moment, he switches out the original ordinary deck of cards that Jimmy Fallon shuffled, and now he's holding an entirely new deck, which is actually gimmicked. This gimmicked deck is organized so that the second packet has roughing spray between the cards, while packets 3 through 10 contain neodymium magnets. For example, the third packet contains a magnet in the first and third card, sandwiching one in between, but to split this packet of 3 cards, pressure is needed, which is exactly what he does. Same goes for the 4th, 5th, all the way up to the 10th packet. The magnets are what hold the cards together in pre-arranged sequenced packets. So the demo of Shin dealing perfect packets isn't purely sleight of hand. It's more of a gimmick delusion, designed to create the appearance of an impossible skill. After all, he is a magician performing a trick. That's not to say Shin doesn't have skill, he absolutely does, but he often relies on gimmicks. And that's not a bad thing. Now, I know I still haven't answered the 2 big questions. First, how did Shin know the volunteer would select the 6 of spades? And second, before he even starts dealing the 10 packets, he performs a riffle shuffle with that gimmick deck and has Jimmy push the 2 packets into each other. Logically, that should mess up the entire prearranged sequence in the gimmick deck. This is where you really have to pay close attention to Shin's hands. Notice that once he introduces the prepared deck, he springs them.
Okay, just say it out loud for Jimmy.
And in the very next shot, the cards are already interlaced into each other, and he fakes the riffling of 2 packets. What he actually did here is called an anti-ferro shuffle. And here's how that looks. An anti-ferro shuffle, when the cards are sprung very close to the hand at a controlled and stable pace, allows the cards to out-jog alternately, and this becomes noticeable once the deck is somewhat squared up. This is exactly what Shin was doing in that moment. The anti-ferro made it appear as though he was shuffling 2 packets together, but in reality, when Jimmy pushed them into each other, the sequence of the deck remained completely unchanged. The magnets implanted within the cards explains why the anti-ferro shuffle appeared unusually rough, but still, none of this explains how Shin was able to figure out what card the volunteer would choose in order to set up his deck in such a way that all the spades are on top in each packet. Well, that's where pre-show work comes in. In this case, the volunteer is basically being tricked and is forced before the show to remember a particular card. Now, this doesn't mean the volunteer is in on the performance. In fact, he's being fooled just like the rest of us. And the concept of dual reality is at play here. So in the volunteer's reality, when Shin asks him to think of a card, he is thinking of the card that was forced onto him before the show, which Shin specifically told him to remember in his mind. That way, later on, during the performance, when asked, he would immediately recall what card he was thinking of. A common excuse magicians use for this kind of pre-show work is they would say, "Sometimes you might get confused during the performance, so just select a card before we start so things run smoothly." Meanwhile, in our reality, we're assuming the volunteer is given a free choice to name any card. Now, for the final Royal Flush production, it's actually pretty simple to explain, now that we know each of the packets are pre-arranged. The packet that's supposed to be the 6 of spades already contains 6 cards. The top one is the 6 of spades, the one we see, and the remaining 5 cards underneath it are the Royal Flush, but in hearts. When Shin flips over the card, roughing spray that has been applied on the face of the 6 of spades allows it to stick to the back of the 10 of hearts, as he spreads the cards in a one-handed fan. Behind this mask, only the truth remains, till we meet again.